I try not to play favorites because I've had so many wonderful guests on Chatter That Matters. But today, I'm going to put one on a pedestal who possibly stands above all. A woman whose vision transformed a simple stage into a realm of pure magic and profound purpose. Her name is Diane Dupuy, and she's a visionary founder of Famous People Players.
Sometimes I'm looking at the black because I know the person that's behind that crow or on the legs of Elvis, their struggles in life. I'm so proud of them. I grew up here. I grew up in this company. This is my school. I haven't graduated yet.
So what makes Diane so magical? Well, she started with a black light theater company that brings inclusion and integration to people with disabilities.
I remember the first time I went to her, it's gonna be fun and there's nothing I should be afraid of, but kind of scary.
Imagine a stage where performers dressed in black become invisible. And in doing so, they allow life-size characters and props to glow and float eerily to music. They create this intricate visual illusion that mesmerizes the audience. And this innovative use of black light was initially a powerful technique to hide the performers with disabilities. Why? Because in the 70s, society wasn't ready to integrate them openly. They hid them away.
We don't erase history. And this is exactly what this company came from.
Diane, who bravely shares her own struggles with a learning disability, has spent a lifetime changing that stigma.
Recognized that I was born with a special gift. It was my imagination.
Famous People Players isn't just a theater. It's recognized as Canada's goodwill ambassadors. It's a home and family with individuals known as players learn everything from manipulating puppets and managing dining services to developing life skills and confidence.
And whatever you do with your gift that you're born with, it's to make this world a better place because you're in it.
Famous People Players are pioneers in bringing integration to the forefront of the world, and they've even inspired policy changes like the shutdown of segregated schools in Ontario. Diane's journey, their journey shows that life has meaning no matter what the circumstances.
What you see is sensational. What you don't see is inspirational.
And here's something else that I haven't done on my show, and that's make an appeal to everybody listening and everybody that you know that has means. We must do everything we can to preserve what Diane Dupuy and Famous People Players achieve every day. This company relies on ticket sales and donations and sponsorships. They've operated without government grants for decades. Diane and her players remind us that human beings are not only special, but within all of us, we possess incredible potential. And these people with mental and physical disabilities need a stage like this. A place where their talents shine, their confidence soars, where applause is sincere, and where they can continue to inspire all of us to truly see and value every individual. And now I go live on stage and interview Diane Dupuy moments after she's just entertained me with some of the magic talent of the Famous People Players.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Famous People Players.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman. Thank you for listening to Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. If you can, please subscribe to the podcast, and ratings and reviews, well, they're always welcome and they're always appreciated. Diane Dupuy, welcome to Chatter That Matters.
Wow, you bring tears to my eyes.
Well, I just sat with you in the audience, and you were kind enough to put on a couple of scenes, and scenes you might have seen 1,000 times, and you started crying. And that made me cry, realizing that how important this is to you. And I don't think it's because it's important to you in terms of individually. It's important because you know how much it matters to so many people.
That's true. You know, people ask me, don't you ever get tired of looking at the show or anything? And did you see those colors? And I says, well, sometimes I'm looking at the black because I know the person that's behind that crow or on the legs of Elvis, their struggles in life. I'm so proud of them. I grew up here. I grew up in this company. This is my school. I haven't graduated yet. I was always a slow learner when I went to school because I couldn't concentrate. This I can concentrate on. I get bored so easily. I think that's one of the worst diseases is to be bored. But here, I'm fascinated.
To paint the picture for my audience, that some of them will be listening on the audio, everything we see is done through black light. So when you talk about watching the black, behind are these performers. And then what comes to life is this fluorescent puppetry that's magical. I was just watching Elvis dance and I wondered, how could one individual do all of that with a puppet? And yet when the lights came on, we realized there was 3 people performing.
3 people.
Such a moving art form. But I want to rewind the clock because this began even before you joined this company. This began because as a young child, from what I understand, you loved playing with puppets.
I have to rewind because my first day of grade 1, I was very excited about going to school because I was going to make new friends. When I got into the classroom, I was so happy. I was yelling out and screaming, and I couldn't sit still. And the sister, I went to a Catholic school, was trying to get me to sit still in the class, but I wanted to play with my new friends. And then finally, the recess bell went. And I went out to the recess yard to play, and nobody played with me. It made me feel very sad. And I came back in the classroom, and I had to sit still. And that was painful for me. And then all of a sudden, I saw the windows of the classroom, and I looked out there, and I saw myself riding a white horse. I was going to save the world. I didn't need all this. And I made up my mind right there, 6 years old. I don't need this. I failed grade 3. I failed grade 6. And people are shocked, grade 9 twice. Not because I was stupid. I just wasn't interested. And hyper. And my mother recognized that I was born with a special gift. It was my imagination. And she was the one with the nun, a teacher, Mother Bertil, or Loretto nun, that encouraged me to use it. And whatever you do with your gift that you're born with, it's to make this world a better place because you're in it.
How did you overcome, though? I mean, in being shunned, you failed grade 3, you failed grade 6, you kept back twice in grade 9. You're suddenly the very big older child in these classrooms. Natural for kids to bully what they feel is a weakness.
Yeah.
How did you find a way to overcome that trauma? Was it just simply through your imagination that you could?
I would just go into another world and tune out. I guess when I look back on it, maybe I was a lonely child sometimes, but I was always so creative. And my mother built me the puppet theater, and she told me, just go sit behind there and find yourself. And I did. There it was. I was behind there. And when I could hear the applause out there, I felt good. And I could express myself. But it wasn't me expressing. I just saw the puppet. And I let the puppet do what the puppet wanted to do. That was it.
Let's talk some more about your mom, because she didn't just start you in the puppet theater. You ended up bringing her into your theater.
My mom and I fought a lot. And my mother always said, our relationship is like George Burns and Walter Matthau and the Sunshine Boys. Exactly. And I want this and I want that. But my mother was always worried, Italian, worried that I would fail again. And she was worried when I came up with this idea. Because at that time, we were called mentally retarded. Now, nobody likes me saying this out publicly. They get upset. We get letters. But we don't erase history. And this is exactly what this company came from. When I was, I think I was about 19, 20, I went to the Aurelia Institution to volunteer. I was shocked. There were no doors in the washroom, no forks and knives to eat with, and no toilet paper. And it really bothered me. And I just thought, and I saw all of them, all these people, they were almost like animals, all in one room with all the, social workers, assistants, whatever, all sitting there watching them, making sure that they didn't hurt themselves or whatever. Awful environment. And I went to the doctor and I asked him, why is it like this? I don't get it. And he said, there's no doors on the washroom because they eat the toilet paper. They take the forks and knives and they start stabbing each other. There's nothing else we can do. When I talk to the students when they come here, I say, did you know that in this great country of ours, many years ago, people were hidden. They were not allowed to be integrated into society. It was so upsetting to me. And in many ways, I related to them because when I was a young kid, I was called a retard by a kid in my class. And I was scared and I was ashamed. And I remember thinking, because I failed grade 3, oh my God, that's what they think I am. And I remember when this lady, her name was Audrey Watson, she worked at the Surrey Place Center for the Mentally Retarded. She asked me to come and do a show for the kids. And I didn't want to go because I thought, oh, this cements it. She insisted again and insisted again. And I finally went. And I'm glad I listened. Young kid in the audience that day at the Surrey Place had a seizure when my show was on. And do you know that all those kids who they called that awful name all got up with concern, compassion, and wanted to help her? When I remember a girl in my class who had seizures and her skirt would wrap around her neck and all the kids would laugh. And that was the only time in my life that I had the guts to stand up and yell and scream at every one of them when I could never do it for myself.
Now, how did the black light come along? Because to me, a puppeteer tends to be hidden behind the curtains. But the beautiful thing that you're doing is with black light.
My father was a very creative artist. And I love my dad dearly, but he was an alcoholic. He was a very nasty drunk when he drank. Some people fall asleep and pass out. He was nasty. And when I was a little girl, 3-4 years of age, for an unknown reason at the dinner table, he said, go to the basement. And I would get up and I would go. I would be scared at first and no lights on were allowed in the basement. I'd just sit there in the dark. And I sat down there and I had a little record player. I had that record, Pinocchio, When You Wish Upon a Star, It Makes No Difference Who You Are. And I played that. And I imagined myself being Cinderella down there. And my Prince Charming would come and everything. It didn't bother me every time I had to go to the basement. It didn't bother me at all. But through the blackness there, I could picture things. And, and I never realized until years later that I walked up that basement floor and I found, as you can say, your Prince Charming, your princesses, was the famous people players. People say, why is it black light? It's because at that time when I founded it, we couldn't be seen. People would say it's a freak show. So we had to hide. And we hid in the black light. And I used to say to the early players, I say, so if we bomb, they'll blame it on Liberace or they'll blame it on Elvis because they don't see any of us. We're going to show them we're professionals. In fact, we're going to be the pioneers that changes everything. So you're never called that awful name again. And that's what we did.
But Diane, there's a big difference between dreaming it, even if you're finding a way to escape being put in a dark basement, and actually making this happen. And you did. And I'm curious how somebody that society had judged as not being quite right, and society had pushed back because you couldn't learn the way others, you found a way to rise above all of that.
There's so many components of me. I was also raised by the Catholic Loretto nuns. And we were always taught, number one, to forgive. And when I used to go to school in the morning crying because my dad had beat me, we'd go into the chapel and light a candle. And I always had a guardian angel, they would say, who would always look after you and guide you and tell you what to do. For me, the power of prayer is very important. I've got many stories of earth angels that, come in my life. I remember when I first opened the first Dine and Dream Theater. Oh my gosh, what a nightmare. Governor General comes, we're a big hit. And I had a drawer full of bills from a construction company and I couldn't have the money to pay for it. My board of directors says we had to shut the place down after we opened it. We're going to have to figure out how we raise the money. And every day I went to mass early in the morning. I lit a candle and I prayed to St. Anthony, who was the founder of many things. Find the money, find the money. And I did this every day for 30 days. Nothing. And then one day we had this little lunch show for some seniors. After the show, we were going to gather everybody together and we were going to all the performers and say, we can't come back. And during that, watching all the seniors eat their lunch, a young man, gray suit, and he comes into the front door and he's looking like this. I says, are you looking for somebody here? And he says, yes, I'm looking for Diane Dupuy. What can I do for you? I remember when you came to my school and you spoke to us. It really helped me a lot. So it's not much, but I wanted to make a donation to you because I heard you open this place up. And I thanked him very, very much. And in my mind, I said, this isn't going to help me. It's like, I need lots of money. And it was for $20,000. And you know what the name on the check was? Anthony. We have to suffer to achieve where you want to go. I don't like it. I have arguments with God all the time about this. I don't know what the hell you're doing. I don't know why you gave us free will. That was the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. If you want me to continue or be an instrument to do this work, send me the money.
And just, I don't want to lose the last thought, but you said, I love my dad. How did you find a way to love him?
He was a great guy when he wasn't drinking. I went down to visit him in Arizona, and I could be a brat. I was mad he left us, went off and married another woman who had a son. And I didn't like that. And my full intention was, I'm going to break up this marriage. I did too. My gosh. Oh, my heavens. But anyway, he took me all through Arizona to the desert and everything. And I just loved it so much. And so sometimes when I get into a real dump, I always envision us as the pioneers going across the desert in the wagons, looking for the new frontier. That's our life here. And when we had people like Liberace who discovered us.
How did that come about?
My mother loved Liberace.
Yeah.
He was a big star then. And I could envision a piano, a candelabra dancing. I had it all figured out. The tambourine, the maracas going, and Liberace dancing with his feet on the keyboard. And I knew he would love this. And so I picked up the phone. Hello, my name is Maggie, and I'm Mr. Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau's personal assistant. And he saw this wonderful show, a black light with a puppet of Liberace. The Prime Minister would like to have him honored at a gala. Oh, it's wonderful. This is great. Well, gee, can I have your phone number and I'll call you back? No, I'm traveling with Mr. Trudeau. I'll call you back. So that's how it went. Conversations like that. And I changed it. And then I pretended I was somebody else. And how did we book the puppet? I did all kinds of stuff. So when he came to perform in Toronto, there was a gala going on. And it was to raise money for, at that time, the mentally retarded. And I convinced them that we should be performing at it. Long story short, he agreed to come to this gala to be honored. Pierre Trudeau's going to be there. It's going to be there. Oh, when I think of the things I've done, I couldn't do them today because there's social media.
Especially somebody raised in a Catholic with nuns. Shame on you.
Well, you know about the nuns, okay? We had another story. Anyway, I go to the Royal York Hotel to pick Liberace up. I have the limousine outside. And if you've been in the Royal York, you know they have the banks and all the elevators around. And I... running from one elevator to look, doors open, it's busy. And then all of a sudden, the doors open and there's Liberace. And all I could think about was, this puppet doesn't look anything like this man at all. Oh my God. We get into the ballroom and they announce, Liberace, lights go down right away because we're going to do the number right away. Out comes the famous people players. And it was so enchanting. And I could almost feel, like a fairy godmother had flown in with her magical wand and said, bibbity, bobbity, boo, you're now professionals. And at the end of that show, the last number we did was Liberace's Impossible Dream. To dream the impossible dream to be better far than you are. And they all came out for a bow. Liberace gets up right away and said to the audience, I found my new opening act in Las Vegas and I'm going to have you come. All of a sudden, I come back to reality, and I'm kind of sliding down the table thinking, what have I done in public? Wait till he finds out who they are. That's going to make a difference. When the performers took their black hoods off and came up and started speaking to him, he caught on. And he went back to the microphone and he said, the way you perform, where you move people in a matter of seconds from tears to laughter is a very special gift. And I'm still gonna have you open for me in Las Vegas. I mean, everybody went crazy.
With Liberace giving his seal of approval, you have to believe it'd be smooth sailing finally for Diane and her famous people's players. But when we return, we'll learn more amazing stories of this woman, how she never takes no for an answer, what it took for her to get her players to Las Vegas, and what she does every day to keep the lights on this amazing show and to give these extraordinary people the stage they deserve. Hi, it's Tony Chapman. I want to talk to you about the RBC Purpose Framework. This is a bold commitment to make a meaningful difference in our communities. By 2035, RBC will make a philanthropic investment of $2 billion to support community ideas that help seed, scale, and sustain solutions in 3 key areas where RBC believes they can have a meaningful impact. First is to support the transition to a net zero economy. The second, in face of such massive change, equip people with skills for a thriving future. And third, drive equitable opportunities for prosperity, including food security, housing stability, health services, and financial well-being. When communities thrive, we all prosper. And that matters to you, to me, and to RBC.
Going through what we're going through right now with what's happening south of the border, it's waking up every morning and knowing there's no hope. It's uncertain. I don't know where I'm going. Do I go left, right? What do I do? How can I make a plan when we don't even know as a country what we're going to do? It is frightening.
Today, my special guest is the founder of Famous People Players, the one and only Diane Dupuy, one of the most extraordinary human beings I have ever interviewed.
A young lady by the name of Diane told me that these youngsters had worked very, very long and hard doing impressions of some of their favorite performers, and I was amongst them.
The next thing that happened was we got a call from the head of the Hilton Hotel in Vegas. They didn't want us. I don't know where I got my guts back then, because I said to the guy on the phone, I agree with you. I said, the only way you can do this, and I'll back you 100%, is you come to Canada, you see them, and then you tell Liberace that we're awful. And he came, and the company went up and performed. We had 2 little chairs, And he just turned to me within 2 minutes and said, okay, you're going to Las Vegas. And so we were on our way to Las Vegas. We get to the Pearson airport and the American authorities wouldn't let us cross because of who we were. Missed the first flight, missed the second flight. What the heck do you do? We got this far and I didn't know what to do. And thank God for payphones because I got on the phone and I called the White House.
Just stop. I called the White House.
I got Mabel, the switchboard operator, let's say. And I cried on the phone. You got to help me. I've got to get this group to Las Vegas. You got to help me. She said, I'll make some calls. We missed another flight. Finally, it was Senator Ted Kennedy, the Kennedy Foundation, I think. I don't know how it worked. There was only one flight left to go. And finally, the senator called and said, let that group pass. And I went right by that guy. And he says to me, who do you know? And I said, I just want to know why we couldn't get across this border. And he says, because we thought you were going to leave them on our healthcare system. I think we changed all that. We brought that to the attention to the government there. And we never did it by yelling, screaming, protesting, going around. We did it through the beauty of our art that people fell in love with and said, gee, I didn't know they were capable of such wonderful things. You know what that makes people feel in my company? They feel good. They feel tall. For someone who could never look anybody in the eye, for someone who sat on the floor, who just put his head down and didn't want to partake. I also had a young man who lived in a room for 18 years with a towel over his mirror because he didn't want to look at himself because he had a very abnormal shaped head, purple in color and big magnifying glasses. His name was Renato. And he came in a taxi. To see him there, standing, everybody staring at him, and it didn't bother him at all. Seeing the players boarding their plane to come back to Toronto after being a big hit in Las Vegas. Okay, critics didn't even know anything about us. Rave reviews. And there's Renato walking down the aisle of the plane. Everybody staring and whispering. Didn't bother him at all. Then you had Brenda, who used to scream and holler and rip the place apart, was upset with her luggage missing. And she didn't get annoyed with something that went wrong. And then we had darling Benny, who was the one that always sat on the floor and was shy. Well, he's up there telling the pilot how he should fly and find the way home to Canada. You know, those are the things that makes me so excited and passionate that I say, all right, we're going to go and do this now. And we're going to do that. And then what happens? You land in Toronto. And what do you think? The CBC found out about the spoof, as they called it, pulled off in Vegas. And right away, Toronto Star, mentally retarded puppeteers, big hit in Las Vegas. After we've been there, you know something? You love Stevie Wonder for his music, not because he's blind. And I stand behind that today. And now we're out in the open of who we are because we've been accepted. And there are a lot of people like that. There's still a lot of people like that. And there's still that discrimination. And I always say to the players, if that happened to you and they do it, maybe you didn't represent yourself right. I do classes teaching how you present yourself. And then you learn. And you can't say I have a disability. You got to be patient or anything. This is a different world out there. You're going to fight for yourself. You are a man or you're a woman or you're a person. You got a gift. Now don't start asking everybody to take care of you and do all this stuff. We got to try and do it. And that's how everybody grew because it was a challenge. Today now the world has changed and I'm lost in the dark.
How many years has the theater been going?
51 years this June 22nd.
Has there ever been a time where you felt you were on strong financial footing? Or has it always been part of your mandate, not just to dream the theater and the puppeteers and the Liberace, but having to always raise money?
Not really, but I would say when we had our first Diane Dream Theater in Toronto, we were doing very, very well. We had the tour bus up. We were breaking even. And sometimes we would have a little surplus and we would put it aside. And that would be like our savings account. And then, you know, something happens in the world. Like, let's say the world trade goes down. You know, SARS comes. All of a sudden, ticket sales are gone. We were working off of ticket sales. We weren't working off of government grants.
Not only preaching the need for independence with the people that work here, but really striving to be independent of needing government handouts. You've always tried through corporate sponsorships and ticket sales. But today you're probably in a very dire straits. And I want to unpack that because part of what I want to do is help you find money because this is something very special. You're very special. Why do you think, I mean, we can blame it on the world changing and pandemics and everything else, but this is what we want to be saying as a human race is that we become better. Expressions like this. Why are you struggling to be heard and having people support you?
It's a struggle. I think it's meant to be that way. For some reason, I don't know why. What they learn and how they grow is by what they're doing. So we sell the tickets. It's a hard thing to market famous people players. It's a hard thing to brand. Oh, it's a kiddie show. Or it doesn't do well on television. When I went out fundraising for the dining room, to have a dining room, it was actor Paul Newman who gave me that money. He saw our show. He was so wonderful, and he made a television commercial for me with Jack Lemmon promoting us. Everybody said, well, oh, Paul Newman's involved with them. He'll look after them. And nobody gave. We didn't have to go out and do big fundraising because we were selling tickets, and it made us proud. I feel today in this society that the work we do is so amazing. We need to have the government. We are Canada's goodwill ambassadors to the world. And we go out and we've done benefit performances for many organizations in this country, building group homes through our show. We went to Japan. It was right after the Kobe earthquake. And we did, I think it was 2 weeks run. And the money from that run built a special place for the Down syndrome children who lost their parents in the earthquake. We're trying, and you know, the rent is high, and it goes on. It just goes on. We're number one on TripAdvisors for concerts and theaters. Hello, where are you?
Your daughters come in to the business. How's the relationship with your daughter compared to the relationship you have with your mom, which you described, I think, as the...
Same way.
Same way?
Oh, yeah. George Burns and Grace. I mean, I got to tell you, we argue a lot. I want things done this way. I'm copying my mother, and I can't believe I'm saying this. She does a wonderful job. I'm very proud of Joanne, really proud of her.
You've had some health issues, and yet you sit here with more energy and more passion than almost any guest I've ever had on Chatter That Matters. Is it just inside you, this radiant heart? You find a way to just keep going no matter how many times people try to knock you off?
There are days, and there are many days where I'm so tired. There are many days I think I'm going to go home and I can't catch my breath because I have pulmonary fibrosis caused from the chemo and radiation. When I had breast cancer, I'm 16 years past that. I could never leave the company without a home. I just can't. And so I would get up and I'd come back to work. I struggled through it. I have beautiful people who work here. Ann Campbell was still is my right arm. But I love what I do. And I also don't like what I do. You know, at the same time, it's a love-hate relationship because, oh no, not this again. Oh no, we have to go through this. Going through what we're going through right now with what's happening south of the border, it's waking up every morning and knowing there's no hope. It's uncertain. I don't know where I'm going. Do I go left, right? What do I do? How can I make a plan when we don't even know as a country what we're going to do. It is frightening. All I could think about is not just that one man, but everybody that's there in their own country seeing this. What is wrong with you? Because we can't have this.
When we were in the stands watching it, lights came on and you knew everybody that was on that stage. You also knew where they came from and their backstories. Share a story of someone that walked in here and just soared.
Well, I would say in the early days, that would be Benny. Didn't want to talk to anybody. Just getting him up and moving and trying everything. Finally, after a year, I'm going to take him on Liberace's tour across Canada. And all I gave him in the show was these butterflies. And it was going to be for the Barbra Streisand number where she came out arabesque on a harp. And he was having so much trouble learning it, but and everybody was against me in the company taking him on this tour. And he's got to get out there in the real world. He's got to learn. He's got to be kicked around, whatever the case is. He's going to get it. I'm a firm believer. Well, we got to Montreal and he did the number and the butterflies came out and fell on the floor. Liberace's limousine rolled over them. And I got into a little bit of trouble with the manager and the stage manager about this. And I said, it won't happen again. I promise you it will not happen again. And then I go in the dressing room and I go, Betty, you're gonna go home. You're gonna go home. I'm telling you, please don't you get those butterflies and they're gonna fly. I guarantee you, by the time we get to Ottawa, it will be done. Well, we get to Ottawa and they never came up. And that was it. I was told he had to go home. I go into the dressing room and you see him crying. You didn't even bring them up. You didn't even try. And he says, I can't go home, Diane. I just can't go home. My parents bought tickets for the OT Center. They're expecting me to be there. You got to promise me, Diane, you just give me one more chance. I got to make my family proud. Well, we get to Toronto and the number begins and those butterflies came up so beautifully and floated off and Benny did it. And I never forgot that. And by the time we got to Hamilton Place, we had a gala that night, opening gala, where the ticket sales would help support us. And we presented the Liberace Award to Benny. And when Benny grabbed it, it was like a scene out of Rocky. It was so fantastic. And he changed since that day.
You know, Diane, I always end my podcast with my takeaways, and I'm so moved by you. It's almost like if there was a theme that ran through it, it is Benny's butterfly. You found a way to open your wings at a young age where a lot of people, because of the trauma of having a very abusive father or being in a school where you're shunned because you're not like them. And you found a way to fly away by looking out that window and seeing those clouds. And then you decided to be this angel that would let other people become butterflies. And you've spent your entire life, and it's not just the players that perform that have found the magic of getting applause and standing ovations, but it's the people that work with you. It's the sponsors that are lucky enough to be part of you. It's the Liberace's and Paul Newmans that realize there's so much more to life than just being a celebrity. And I just think you're one of the most famous people I've ever met, and famous in the sense of you will leave a lasting mark on me. And I promise you, whatever I can do, I will try to be one of those people that walked through the door and helped you, because I am lost for words, because I am just so moved by who you are as a human being, and so blessed to have spent this last little bit of time just learning about your story and not asking any of the questions we planned, because it was just such a beautiful, free-flowing interview of this butterfly that lets so many other people fly. So thank you for being part of it.
Well, I have to say, you are a very special man. I'm very comfortable with you. And I can just open up. You bring out the best in me in many ways. I thank you. So this is your moment. You're the star, and you're a wonderful man for what you have done with your life and the shows that you have. So I thank you. I'm humbled.
I truly do live in a dream world where every single day I'm the most happiest person because of famous people players, because of Diane Dupuy.
It just blows your mind. I'm very proud of all of them. It's their company, it's their home, they run it.
Joining me now is Andrea Barrick. She's a Senior VP of Sustainability and Impact at RBC. Andrea, welcome back to Chatter That Matters.
Thanks, Tony. So great to be here again.
I think it's important to unpack just the kind of role that you're playing, because you go sustainability and impact are really, to me, very different words. Every time I'm on LinkedIn and I see you, you're somewhere around the world really bringing this sense of positivity and possibility. So tell me a little bit more about your mandate.
Sure. I mean, I think, as a corporation, we live by our purpose, which is helping clients thrive and communities prosper. And so my job is actually helping the entire organization, wherever we are, demonstrate that we are helping communities to prosper. So how are we having a positive impact on society, on the communities that we're in, on the planet? So it's a pretty good gig.
I read the statistic that RBC and the RBC Foundation is the largest source of funds, and I would argue also emotional and intellectual capital to mental health in Canada, that you're involved in so many different aspects. Why is mental health such a North Star for RBC, saying we've got to do more as an organization and collectively as a country to help people that are suffering with their mental health?
We came at it two different ways. One is we have a huge history of supporting youth and making, providing youth with the skills to be successful in the future of work. And what we noticed in that work is that if you don't have strong mental health, you can't actually get the skills you need to be, that is one of the skills you need to be successful. So we came at it from that more sort of skills and helping youth overall with their preparation to be successful in their lives. We also had a history of helping broadly all Canadians and in any communities we're in, have better access to healthcare, because healthcare creates the stability that people need to then have the futures that they want financially. And so one of the real gaps in our healthcare system right now has been mental health, which is why we sort of stepped in. But it's in that bigger piece saying, how do we help more Canadians access the healthcare that they need so that they're better able to then continue to live their fullest lives, be their best selves, contribute to the economy, contribute to their families, their neighbors. I would say it's not mental health in and of itself. I think where RBC is sort of special in a way is that they seek out where the gaps are. And we listen to our partners. So when we talk to all of our hospital or healthcare partners, we don't tell them we want to fund mental health. We say to them, what are you seeing as the need that you can't fill right now?
I've followed your career since you joined RBC, and you had a shot at being very successful in politics, and you chose to go into an organization to make a difference. For people listening that really want to make an impact, a positive dent, what advice can you give them to find that place where they feel they can chase that purpose and at the same time make a meaningful difference?
I mean, I have a job that obviously has a positive impact, just the nature of the role and the work that I do. But I talk to, thousands of our colleagues at the bank, certainly about what each of them can do in their own jobs. And the stories that they tell me are quite incredible. Local branch employees, for example, that will notice a family is struggling and will be able to proactively step in and offer assistance so that they don't get into trouble. That has an enormous impact. We have people who work in, sort of risk and, anti-money laundering, and, the work that they do helps stop child trafficking. No matter what your job is, you can find what that purpose is and how you can make a difference, even if it is just being the best colleague that you can be and making people around you feel like they belong and are included in your workplace.
Encouraging people to act in a positive way and create a positive social discourse is something this country desperately needs. And it's nice to have your voice added to the mix. And I know you make a major impact working in the job you do at RBC, but I think these are words of wisdom that we can all benefit from. So I appreciate you joining me on Chatter That Matters.
Always nice to chat with you, Tony.
Once again, a special thanks to RBC for supporting Chatter That Matters. It's Tony Chapman. Thanks for listening, and let's chat soon.